India's market capitalization to GDP ratio is at an all-time high. It is an average, if you look at for a period of time, the average is about 85. We are at about 136%. So valuations, of course, are not cheap. In fact, valuations are above long-term averages. And FII holding in India today is at a decadal low. We are at about 16% of total market cap as compared to a high of almost 20%. So FII holding has clearly come back. Hello everyone, a very good morning to all of you. Good morning. So thank you very much for having me here, and it's always a pleasure to talk about markets. And remember, we are in the month of December 2024, and this is also the time when we crystal gaze into what's going to happen in 2025. But let me caveat it, we may not always be right, but we try every year to see what the market and the economy has in store for us going into 2025. So before I talk about our markets, let's take a little bit of time to look at what's happening globally. The world is changing all around us. So from globalization, we are moving to deglobalization and protectionism. We are looking at an interest rate scenario which is changing. So we had a situation of ample liquidity, tight liquidity, and now again rate cut cycle starting around the world. We also have a situation because of geopolitical conflict that environment, social issues are taking a backseat around the world, and this has an implication in terms of how various sectors are also performing. We are moving from a unipolar world to a multipolar world, and finally, of course, there are disruptions all around us, and therefore the world clearly is changing and changing at a rapid pace. Now, one key factor that is going to possibly have a bearing on how markets move is that the interest rate cycle is clearly turning. The number of central banks around the world are in an easing mode, and as you know, the Fed itself, which is the US Federal Reserve, has also started its rate cut cycle, and it is likely that maybe going into early next year, we start seeing a rate cut cycle in India as well from the RBI, and therefore that is changing from a monetary policy perspective. But remember, where the US is concerned, US growth is leveraged. That means today, the US economy is sitting on a national debt which is almost $36 trillion. And this translates into a fiscal deficit which is close to 7% of GDP. And this was something that has happened in the last few years, specifically after COVID, where fiscal deficit has ballooned considerably where the US is concerned. And when we talk about India, the good part is that in India, on the other hand, fiscal deficit has largely been under control. And the other large economy of the world is China. Now remember, a few months ago, there was this belief that China would do a huge fiscal stimulus to get growth back on track. Now they did some fiscal stimulus, but growth is just not coming back on track. So today you have an economy which was the driving force of the world around us, China, which is actually growing at a rate of growth which is significantly slower than what it has been in the last decade. And this has implications for our markets as well as our economy. Now, in this context, is the Indian economy an oasis in the global desert? Now, look at this chart and this slide. There is a question mark at the end of it. So, why is there a question mark? You will ask me that hasn't India been growing at a faster pace than the rest of the globe? Yes, it has. And therefore, why the question mark? The answer is this. When you look at our GDP numbers, the last quarter GDP numbers that were just reported, GDP growth in India actually slowed down to a 7-quarter low of 5.4%. So there has been some slowdown in growth where India is concerned. When you look at GST collections, for instance, in the last 7 out of 8 quarters, GST collection growth has actually been lower than nominal GDP growth. Therefore, this is also an indicator that in the last maybe 2 quarters or so, Indian economy has seen some degree of slowdown, and hence my question mark. The other data that we track are high frequency indicators. So you look at data such as passenger vehicle sales, cement volume growth, you look at electricity generation, diesel consumption, many of the other high frequency indicators, all of this have shown some degree of month-on-month slowdown. So therefore you ask me that, what's my outlook for 2025? Will India grow at a much slower pace? My answer to that is actually no. While in the last couple of quarters, we have seen some degree of slowdown where India is concerned and GDP growth and high frequency economic indicators have shown some slowdown, but there is something to look forward to. There are three key factors that we are tracking at our end. The first, of course, has been the festival season. Diwali 2024 saw e-commerce sales actually rise by almost 49% as per reports. So the festive season started on a muted note, but it actually picked up quite well. We are in the middle of the wedding season, and I'm sure all of you here in this hall would have received invites to numerous weddings during this month of December. It is estimated that 4.8 million couples will form a union in this season, and that will actually spur almost 5,90,000 crores of spending. So that's a huge number for the economy. And the third most important factor is government capex. Now look at this data. The data shows that if you look at the fiscal deficit target in terms of the budgeted number, there is about 11 trillion of budgeted central government capex for FY25. In the first half, we are at only 4.15 trillion, which is 4,15,000 crores. That means in the second half of the year, the government actually has to do almost 6.9 trillion of spending. Now the monthly run rate of spending will go up from 0.69 trillion to about 1.16 trillion. So there are three key areas where we believe that growth should start to come back where our economy is concerned, especially in the second half of the year. Now you know that Kharif production, which is a summer crop, has been good. In fact, if you look at the latest data shows that the Kharif production growth is almost 6% on a YOY basis, and that's a huge number. That means that rural wages, which were stagnating for a very long period of time, should also start to see an improvement. The other fact is rural demand. Now you would all have heard in the last 3 years that rural is not growing, rural demand is muted. But let's look at some of the data points. Two-wheeler sales have started to grow, tractor sales, three-wheeler sales, and even rural agri wages, if you look at the data, has started to grow. That means that on one hand, there is some amount of slowdown where urban is concerned, but if you look at the commentary from most of the FMCG companies, they seem to suggest that rural is now growing at a faster pace than urban is growing. So as I spoke about, there is festive season, wedding, government capex and rural spending. All of this is likely to support growth in the second half of the year. Now we all know that there are two cropping patterns or seasons in India. One is the Kharif and the second is Rabi. Rabi is the winter crop, and for the winter crop you need to have reservoir water, and our reservoirs across India are almost full, and therefore we expect that the winter crop will also be a good crop. That means from agri perspective, we are very well placed. Now the big question that comes in all our heads is, what about private sector capex? If you look at this data, now while we believe that private capex has not grown, the data shows otherwise. If you look at the private capex spend in FY23 and 24, that number was 9.4 or 9.3 lakh crores. That's not a small number. And therefore, with capacity utilization levels at close to 80%, our expectation is that over the next year or so, private sector capex will be the predominant driver for investment growth. Therefore, while the economy has gone through a slight bump, we believe that it's a speed bump, not a roadblock. It should start to recover in the second half of the year. And of course, the big question is, can India benefit from the Trump administration and the US-China tariff war? If you look at the data between earlier and the last presidential term for Trump, there has actually been a decline where China is concerned in terms of imports into the US. So can this be a huge opportunity for India if the execution and the Indian opportunity and the government policies support it? Now with this backdrop, let's turn to what's happening in the equity markets and how should we approach markets given where we are from a macro perspective. Now as you know, our valuations are expensive. India's market capitalization to GDP ratio is at an all-time high. It is an average, if you look at for a period of time, the average is about 85. We are at about 136%. So valuations, of course, are not cheap. In fact, valuations are above long-term averages. However, the market cap growth in India has not been on the back of nothing. It has actually been on the back of growth in corporate profit. So if you look at this chart, the market cap growth between FY20 and FY24 is actually matched by profit growth between the same period of time. That means corporate profit to GDP, which had fallen to a low of 2% in FY20, is now at about 5% of GDP. So 2 to 5% means that corporate profits have grown faster than nominal GDP, and the market cap creation has actually been in line with corporate profitability. So therefore, fundamentals have actually driven our market, not just flows and not just sentiment. And this is very important from a market perspective. Now, as you know that FII flows have been substantial. Last 2-3 months, we've seen more than $14 billion of FII outflows. Now, is this something that we should worry about? Now, let's look at the data. FII flows have been large, but as a percentage of market cap in the last cycle, but since September, the number is actually not that large. So it's about 0.3% of market cap. In the past, we have seen FII flows being as large at about 1.5% of market cap. So there have been instances in the past where our markets have seen very, very high FII outflows. But in this cycle, of course, domestic flows through distributors and through people like you has ensured that the impact on the market has been significantly lower than in the past cycles, where of course the balance has been maintained in a large manner. Now today FIIs clearly have been riding the Trump trade. So while India has seen outflows, the US markets have been the best performing markets globally. So you look at the Dow Jones has seen a sharp uptick. Nifty on the other hand is a mirror image on the way down from September and October highs. And of course the dollar has strengthened considerably against the rupee. And the central bank has used forex reserves in order to curb the volatility of the dollar. And FII holding in India today is at a decadal low. We are at about 16% of total market cap as compared to a high of almost 20%. So FII holding has clearly come back. The question is that will FIIs come back and buy the markets? And why should they buy Indian markets? The answer is this. Indian markets are actually very, very profitable. And the way we measure profitability in equities is return on equity. And if you look at India, more than 30% of Indian companies generate ROEs which are more than 20%. The average ROE of Nifty is 14% and 30% of companies in India generate ROEs which are more than 20%. And secondly, India is a low risk market. And if you look at 1 year rolling beta of MSCI India versus MSCI EM, the beta is much lower, which means that we have lesser volatility. So we have a lower volatile market and better profitable market. Now the question is, what about earnings growth? If you look at the first half of FY25, earnings growth was at about 570 rupees EPS. That means for the next half, we only have to do about 490 rupees of EPS in order to get to the 1059, which is the EPS for Nifty for FY25. For FY26, the expectation is that Nifty earnings will grow in the range of about 14 to 15%, which is a fairly decent earnings growth. Therefore, a lot depends upon how earnings pans out for FY25 and 26. Now, in this sort of an environment, if you look at the number of stocks that have delivered returns between FY20 and 2024, more than 300 stocks have delivered returns of 100% plus. So stock markets have obviously done well. But also when you look at valuations, many stocks today are trading at expensive valuations. So for instance, from BSE 500, the number of stocks today which are trading at a PE multiple, which is more than 50 times, is about 181 stocks. So therefore, valuations are clearly not cheap, and returns have been very, very good across indices as well as across stocks. And therefore, what should we do in this market? Number one, we need to moderate our return expectations for FY25. So if you look at BSE 500 for instance, between December 05 and 2020 Jan, the returns of BSE 500 was about 11%. Between 2020 and 24, the returns have been about 18%. And therefore, if you look at the whole period of 05 to 2024, returns are actually 12.8%. And this becomes even more extenuated when you look at the mid-cap and small-cap indices. Therefore, what we are really saying is that you should not be looking at returns just from the last 4-year perspective. Look at returns from the perspective of a longer-term basis, and that should form your expectation of market returns going ahead. And finally, from an equity perspective, what should we do? We are saying that from an asset allocation bucket, be neutral to equity. Use market fall or dips to add to equity allocation. Given where we are in terms of market cap as well as valuations, we prefer large caps. Therefore, be overweight large caps in your portfolio, marginally underweight on mid caps and underweight small caps at this point in time from an asset allocation bucket. There are 3 key things that we are looking at. Looking at companies which are quality, so quality over momentum. Look at companies where valuations are reasonable over companies where valuations are stretched. And third is look at companies where free float is high as compared to companies where free float is low, that means liquidity is low and companies have moved up, not on the basis of fundamentals but basis of tight liquidity or low ownership. So when you are forming a portfolio, these 3 key things should be your mantra: quality, reasonable valuation and liquidity. And finally, before I stop, for FY25, since we are crystal ball gazing, there are 5 key themes that we are looking at across our portfolios. The first we believe is the capex cycle revival. As I said, that private sector capex is on the cusp of improving, and our belief is that over the next 12 months, manufacturing and capex provides a huge opportunity for India. The second is technology. Structurally as well as from a near-term tactical perspective, as the Fed cuts rates and the US macro turns out to be better than expected, discretionary tech spend should come back in FY25, and therefore 2025 can see improvement where technology is concerned. And of course, all of us here are debating what's happening on generative AI, and we believe that for Indian IT companies, generative AI can actually provide a multi-decadal opportunity which is structural in nature. The third segment is financial services, especially large banks, where we believe that valuations are in your favor and hence risk reward is in your favor. There are near-term headwinds, but remember these banks are well capitalized. They have ROEs which are higher than what it has been in the past decade, and therefore they don't need to raise capital. The fourth and fifth thesis and themes that we are looking at: one, the rural, and we discussed a lot about how rural wages are likely to improve. And the fifth aspect is healthcare, because the sector itself has become diverse. India started as only a low-cost provider of healthcare in terms of generics, but today the companies are moving towards specialty drugs. There is a huge CDMO, which is contract development and manufacturing opportunity, and the government is trying to improve the contribution of India where API, or which is essentially the ingredient that goes into manufacturing of drugs, through the PLI scheme. So these are 5 themes which we believe are structural in nature, which will hold true, hopefully, not just in 2025, but going into the next few years as well. So I'll stop here, and yeah, thank you so much for your patience here.